My junior was chosen in the game of truth or dare and voluntarily kissed my boyfriend, Philip. I broke up with him in front of everyone, but he dismissed it as a tantrum. Don't be such a sore loser. If it were you kissing someone else for a game, I wouldn't care at all. Philip just assumed that a goody-two-shoes like me would never do anything outrageous. In the next round, his buddy, Francis Fu, the most popular guy in the finance department, was chosen for a dare. Take a girl with you for the night. He slowly extended his hand towards me, a smirk playing on his lips. Want to give it a try with me tonight? In the end, I placed my hand in his and agreed. That night, Philip called me nonstop. Chapter 1. The dare in the Roma game was, choose any guy present and kiss him for 3 minutes. The next second, her gaze landed squarely on Philip, who was sitting beside me. Everyone followed her gaze. Philip just lowered his eyes, playing with my hand, as if he couldn't feel the intense stare. Roma timidly asked me, "Senior, can I borrow Philip for 3 minutes?" The air was so still that it seemed like everyone was holding their breath, nervously and eagerly watching this unfolding drama. I didn't understand. There are so many single guys here. Why don't you ask someone else? She was at a loss for words, biting her lower lip and looking embarrassed, but she still moved to the other side of the booth to ask other guys. All of them refused, until the third guy. I don't mind. The guy grinned slyly. A wet kiss. Roma was so embarrassed she was almost in tears, shaking her head incessantly. No need. That guy had had a bit too much to drink and grabbed Roma's hand, trying to kiss her boldly. Philip, who had been casually sitting next to me, finally couldn't keep up the act. He let go of my hand and stood up, pulling Roma back. With a cold smile, he questioned, "Is it fun to bully a girl?" Roma clutched Philip's hand tightly, looking at him for help. I also grabbed his sleeve. Philip looked back at me. I didn't embarrass him, smiling lightly as if nothing had happened. "My head hurts a bit. Can you take me home?" "Let's go, Philip. If you leave with me now, I'll believe you when you say you only like me and have no feelings for Roma. Who keeps clinging to you?" Our eyes met. He avoided my hand. "You know, I can't leave." Seeing the tears welling up in my eyes, he let go of Roma's hand and squatted in front of me. His quiet voice took on a more soothing tone. "Roma is my junior. I have to protect her. Miriam, be a good girl." He raised his hand, gently brushing the corner of my eye. "If it bothers you, don't watch. Just wait for me for a few minutes." I gripped his sleeve tightly, wrinkling the cuff of his white shirt. "Philip, if you kiss her, I will break up with you." My eyes were dry and stinging, but no tears fell. I stared into his eyes, emphasizing, "I really will." Philip's patience ran out. He pried my fingers off, one by one. Standing up, he looked down at me. "Don't be so petty, Miriam." The look in his eyes stunned me for a moment. The last time I saw that look was when he heard that their housekeeper wanted to introduce her daughter to him. His polite refusal barely hid his deep disdain. Chapter 2. One of Philip's friends couldn't stand it any longer and tried to persuade me. "Sis, don't take it too seriously. It's just a game," his girlfriend muttered under her breath. "Yeah, really ruining the mood. Why bother coming to a bar if you're going to be such a buzzkill?" Before I could respond, Francis, who had been sitting silently in the corner of the booth, suddenly let out a light laugh. The focus of the room immediately shifted to him. His gaze landed on the girl who had just spoken. With his wrist supporting his head, he asked slowly, in a measured tone, "If you're so cool with it, why don't you kiss every guy in the room?" Then, as if something had just occurred to him, he added lazily, "Except for me, I'm not that cool with it." He had a knack for treading the fine line, making her feel embarrassed but not to the point of causing a scene. Sure enough, the girl stammered. Her face flushed, but she couldn't come up with a reply. Francis bit lightly on his cigarette and lit it. Leaning back in the booth, he tossed the metal lighter onto the coffee table. He mocked her with her own words. "Buzzkill." I stared at him in shock, unable to believe that, as Philip's friend, he would actually speak up for me. The surprise was so overwhelming that I almost forgot to be upset when the two people kissing for 3 minutes finally finished. pulling me out of my daze. Chapter 3. When Philip sat back down next to me, I was just opening my phone to delete him from my WeChat. The faint satisfaction on his face instantly vanished, replaced by an emotionless stare. What do you mean? I just told you. We're breaking up. As I was about to block his number, he grabbed my hand. Are you done with this nonsense? Philip let out a ridiculous laugh, a thin layer of anger lacing his confusion. It was just a game. How far are you going to take this? If it were you kissing someone else because of a game, I wouldn't care at all. He was so bold because he knew how conventional I was. But before he could finish, the noise from the other side suddenly grew louder. Francis had drawn the most daring card of the night. Take any girl here and spend the night with her. One guy added with a meaningful grin. Yeah, that really means getting a hotel room. Francis didn't move at first. Someone who knew him well tried to smooth things over. Can't you see Fu is not into girls? He's kept his distance from women all these years. Just have him take a shot as a penalty, and we can move on. No one took it too seriously. Since up until now, most people had just brushed off this kind of dare. Few actually went through with it. Wait. Francis suddenly spoke, unexpectedly. He looked straight at me. The room fell silent. Everyone stunned as they watched him slowly walk over to me and extend his hand, with a smile that seemed almost hypnotic. He asked, "Want to give it a try with me tonight?" Philip narrowed his eyes at Francis, smiling as he warned, "If you're drunk, I'll have someone send you home." Francis, this is my girlfriend. The tension in the air was palpable. Francis glanced at him nonchalantly. So? It's just a game. Philip, don't be a sore loser. Philip remained calm. Why would I be? My girlfriend is too conservative. She wouldn't agree to this. So I'll refuse for her. But in the next second, I placed my hand in Francis' palm. Okay. The smile froze on Philip's face. I remembered every time since entering university that they called me a goody-two-shoes, with a tone full of malice, as if I were a relic of the past. The alcohol fueled my rebellious impulse, so I inexplicably agreed. Francis raised an eyebrow slightly as he watched me place my hand in his. He pulled me up and led me towards the door. Gasps and exclamations filled the room behind us. Holy crap! Was that really Fu? Did I drink too much and see things? I'd rather believe that Fu got possessed. Philip's voice was the loudest among them. Stop. He was still sitting in the booth. He looked at me as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. In a casual tone, he said, I just wanted to say. He smiled. Let me know which hotel you book, and I'll bring you guys some condoms. I spoke before Francis could, smiling brightly. No need. Still worrying about your ex-girlfriend's hotel plans after a breakup? Isn't that a bit too much, Philip? I looked at him with pity, and not so subtly declined. Sorry. I don't like simps. Before Philip's face could darken, I grabbed Francis and walked out the door. Chapter 4. It wasn't until I was seated in Francis's car that I finally exhaled deeply. Feeling a wave of relief wash over me, the frustration vanished. I politely thanked Francis. Thank you, Senior Fu, for helping me out today. Just drop me off at the subway station up ahead. I naturally didn't take the dare seriously. Assuming Francis thought the same, he held the steering wheel with one hand, his voice lazy. Do you know the consequences of lying to them? I shook my head but didn't think much of it. Sometimes before playing truth or dare, people would make vows, like swearing to be struck by lightning or remain single for life if they lied. But I didn't believe in those things. I took out my phone to check what the group chat had said. Group leader, tonight's truth or dare is going to be intense. Anyone who lies will be poor for life, drowning in debt, never able to make a fortune. My pupils dilated in shock. I kept rereading those words. No way. This, I actually believe. While I was still panicking, Francis had already pulled up to the subway entrance. He nodded toward the door, his lips curled in a half-smile. Get out, Junior. It's only a lifetime of poverty. No big deal. No, this is serious. I immediately shook my head, gripping the door handle tightly. Francis seemed to misunderstand. Can't open the door? He leaned over, placing his hand on the door handle. Without hesitation, I pressed down on Francis's hand. stopping him from opening the door. His other hand was braced against the edge of my seat, his body hovering above mine. He trapped me silently in the confined space. Francis lowered his eyes. What do you mean? My mind spun like a tangled ball of yarn. I blinked and blurted out, I want to sleep with you. Francis's expression didn't change at all. He leaned back into the driver's seat, tugging at his lips without any real amusement. But I don't. Me? The atmosphere instantly turned icy. The awkwardness hit me like a ton of bricks. I mentally collapsed at least 3 times before I slowly nodded, trying to keep my voice from trembling. Sorry. I think I've had too much to drink. I didn't mean to offend you. Senior Fu. I lowered my head, softly saying goodbye. Well, I'll be going then. Francis moved his fingers and locked the car door. He started the car without a word. I looked back at him. His profile seemed colder than before. I guessed he was angry about my earlier overstep, not letting me escape. So, suppressing my embarrassment, I cautiously apologized again. I'm sorry, Senior. I really didn't mean anything by it. I swear, I have no intentions towards you. I fidgeted in the passenger seat, my head lowered like a student who had made a mistake. My voice was nearly a whisper. I don't want to sleep with you. You're very handsome, but you're not my type at all. Don't worry, Senior. You're perfectly safe. No response. The atmosphere in the car grew colder. I noticed the speed of the car was increasing. Why was Francis getting angrier? Chapter 5. As my anxious thoughts continued to swirl around, Francis pulled up in front of a quiet bar, meeting my confused gaze. He rested his forearm on the steering wheel and gave me a bland glance, offering a brief explanation. Don't forget, we have to spend the night together. Oh, so it doesn't have to involve anything inappropriate to keep our agreement. Francis really is a principled, smart, all-around good student. I immediately got out of the car and followed in his footsteps. Francis knew the owner of the place and arranged for me to sit in a booth before disappearing. A call from an unknown number quickly grabbed my attention. On the other end, I could hear Roma and Philip chatting. Philip, why aren't you calling your girlfriend? Aren't you worried she might cheat on you? Philip found her question amusing. Don't I know how old-fashioned she is? It's just something she said out of spite. His tone carried a hint of casual confidence. She's probably already back in her dorm, asleep. Roma giggled. But seeing how calm you are, it doesn't seem like you care much about her, does it? There was a brief silence on the other end before he answered. It's not like I'm that into her. I angrily ended the call, feeling a mix of humiliation and frustration at having the truth exposed. Because I really was planning to go back to my dorm, wash up, and sleep. It felt like my chest was stuffed with a heavy, suffocating wad of wet cotton. Just then, the cocktail I ordered arrived. I grabbed it and took a big gulp, hoping to quench the nameless fire burning inside me. The waiter gave me a bewildered look. He had just turned to leave when he suddenly froze. Spinning back around, he yelled, "Miss, that drink is the wrong one. That was a special mix our boss made for himself." He shouted in panic, sounding like a boiling kettle. I tried to reassure him. It's fine, I'll pay you whatever it costs. Ignoring my words, he threw down his tray and dashed upstairs in the direction Francis had gone. Chapter 6. It didn't take long for me to understand why the waiter was so terrified. This drink had something extra in it. When Francis reappeared in front of me, my clarity of mind had plummeted to 5%. Miriam, how are you feeling? He leaned down close to me, his cool hand pressing against my cheek. So refreshing. I contentedly leaned into him, nuzzling closer, but with 5% of my clarity remaining. I remembered how he had rejected me. Reluctantly, I pushed his hand away. I jumped off the bar stool and started heading towards the exit. Where are you going? Francis grabbed my arm, frowning deeply. I thought for a moment and responded instinctively. Senior, I think I need a man right now. Worried he might misunderstand, I earnestly reassured him. But it won't be you. After all, he had helped me out, and it would be too immoral to force myself on him. So I emphasized, enunciating each word carefully. Don't worry. I'll look for anyone but you. Francis's face turned so dark it was beyond description. He released my arm, his voice cold as he looked down at me. Is that so, Miriam? I hope you keep your word. Chapter 7. When I came to my senses, I found myself in a hotel room upstairs, being held by Francis. At the same time, my self-control dropped another notch. I felt like I was sinking into a tropical rainforest swamp, restless and agitated. Francis had stripped off his shirt, leaving only a pair of gray drawstring sweatpants. He leaned lazily against the sofa, staring at me coldly. Come here. My gaze briefly lingered on his six-pack abs, then froze there, unable to move. I obediently shuffled over to him. Francis was playing with a bottle of something that looked like medicine. His peach blossom eyes were mesmerizing, almost coaxing as he said, "In light of the help I gave you today, would you mind applying this for me?" I nodded, feeling like I was melting into a puddle, hot and weak, but I still took on the daunting task. Where does it hurt, Senior? Francis guided my burning hand to one of his abs. Here? I blinked rapidly, trying to change the subject, completely unaware that my face was as red as a ripe peach. Francis didn't answer, instead guiding my hand to another ab. This one hurts too, Junior. He resumed his usual teasing demeanor, a playful smile on his lips. As I continued to apply the medicine, I somehow ended up sitting on his lap. He pulled my fingertips to his lips again. Does it hurt here too? I asked, staring directly at his thin lips. Francis's voice was hoarse. You'll know if it hurts if you kiss it. With my arms wrapped around his neck, I was so tempted that I couldn't find a shred of reason. I kissed him lightly, then immediately pulled back. Francis's hands rested on my waist, and he looked down at me, asking softly, Why'd you stop? A bit embarrassed, I sought his permission. Can I kiss you again? Upon receiving his consent, I kissed him without hesitation. Francis pressed the back of my head, taking control. He pried my mouth open, leaving no room for doubt. Chapter 8. Francis's hand was already slipping under my shirt when my phone rang at an inconvenient time. Francis continued to hold my face, his lips still on mine. He glanced at the caller ID before pulling back slightly. He picked up the phone. Philip's voice came through, calm but urgent. Miriam, where are you right now? Your roommate told me you didn't return to the dorm. Who are you with? Francis brushed his lips against mine casually, giving a dismissive reply. Calling at this hour, are you planning to drop off some condoms for us? I paid no attention to Philip on the other end of the line. Still unsatisfied, I nuzzled closer into Francis's chest, seeking his lips. More. Francis chuckled, tilting my chin slightly to one side. He drew out a long his voice low and suggestive. I'll give it to you later. Philip was uncharacteristically agitated. Francis, you know how much I like Miriam, yet you still touched her. You're no brother of mine. Francis, on speakerphone, tossed the phone aside. He guided my hand to the drawstring of his sweatpants, helping me untie it. Regarding Philip's words, he casually agreed. We're not anymore. Not brothers anymore. I found Philip extremely annoying, because he kept blabbering on. Francis didn't have time to kiss me. I snatched the phone and ended the call, shutting it off. Francis smiled knowingly, tilting his head slightly before kissing me again. Chapter 9. I had heard countless times from seniors that Francis was a cold and quiet person. But tonight, he was especially talkative. Don't move. Let me take it off. Miriam, this part is beautiful too. Don't cover it. He was unbelievably gentle, and his compliments, delivered in that husky voice, were incredibly captivating. Miriam, you're amazing. Open your eyes and look at yourself in the mirror, okay? How could you say that? It's clearly sweet. Do you want to taste yourself? I was almost drowning in this sweet trap. I ended up doing a lot of things that, when I remembered them later, made me want to bury my head in shame. Chapter 10. The next morning, when I woke up, Francis was already gone. He hadn't left a single word. It was obvious that he didn't want to have anything to do with me. It was just a one-time accident. I sat up in bed, hugging the blanket, feeling a bit of the loneliness I had expected. But when the warm sunlight hit my shoulder, marked with red traces, I quickly got over it. I'll just consider it as a free night with the most popular guy on campus. Chapter 11. I didn't black out, so when I saw Philip standing outside my dormitory, I wasn't surprised at all. Miriam, when Philip walked up to me, his expression wasn't the fiery anger I had anticipated. Instead, his tone was even softer than usual. I've deleted all of Roma's contact information, and I'll keep my distance from her from now on. Let's just pretend what we said about breaking up yesterday never happened, okay? I didn't know what expression could adequately convey my shock and the indescribable feeling I had at that moment. More than his actions of kissing Roma and then brushing it off. I couldn't understand how he knew exactly what happened between Francis and me last night. Yet he was still here trying to make up. I started to wonder if he had a fetish for being cheated on. After a pause, I couldn't help but ask, still perplexed, "Aren't you bothered by what Francis and I did last night?" He reached out and flicked my forehead. His expression relaxed. "Stop pretending, Miriam. I already know nothing happened between you and Francis last night." I froze, and my first thought was that Francis had told him. That makes sense. His sudden disappearance was a clear indication that he wanted to hide the fact that I got away with it. As Philip spoke, he tried to hug me. "But you did trick me. I was frantically looking for you all night. So, we're even now, right?" I was beyond annoyed and pushed Philip away forcefully. "I told you we're breaking up. Can you stop bothering me? Please stay away from me. I spent all night calculating my fortune, and it turns out you're bad luck for my finances." After the exhausting 3 hours last night, I returned to my dorm, wrapped myself in a blanket, and continued to sleep. Chapter 12. It wasn't until the afternoon that my roommate woke me up. "Miriam, your club is having a meeting. The club president said he tried calling you, but your phone was off. He couldn't reach you, so he asked me to let you know." I quietly sat up, yawning sluggishly after a moment. "Okay, thanks." Moving like a sloth, I slowly climbed out of bed, washed up, charged my phone, and then headed out. By the time I reached the club room, I was fully recharged. It was still before the meeting, and the president, including Francis, hadn't arrived yet. A junior, blushing slightly, hesitantly sidled up to me. She tugged at my sleeve, her cheeks flushed. "Senior, do you know if Vice President Francis has a girlfriend? I want to pursue him." An inexplicable sense of shame welled up in me. I wasn't even sure why I felt guilty. I shook my head at her. "He shouldn't have one." Her eyes lit up noticeably, and she pressed on. "Do you know Senior Fu well? Could you tell me something about him?" I shook my head even more vigorously, trying to distance myself from him, to maintain Francis's image as a pure and unattainable flower on a high peak. "I'm not familiar with him. We've hardly ever spoken." The next second, a mocking laugh sounded softly behind me. "True. After all, it was just me talking last night. All you said was and ah." I didn't even need to turn around to feel the cold aura behind me. Francis was wearing a black jacket today, with the zipper pulled all the way up to his chin. The all-black outfit added a touch of lethal intensity to his presence. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, with a faint, teasing smile on his face. Chapter 13. Francis pulled me into an empty classroom. He lifted me onto the desk, his hands planted on either side of me. He glared at me coldly. "Didn't see this coming. Junior, you're quite the troublemaker." I quickly looked up, my lips almost brushing his chin. Francis noticeably pulled back. "Who taught you that? Kiss and run without taking responsibility?" I straightened my face, feeling justified as I retorted. "I didn't mean to kiss you. It was an accident." He let out a light scoff. "I suggest you think it over again." Out of nowhere, the memory of me asking Francis for a kiss last night suddenly flooded my mind. The straight posture I had maintained crumbled under the weight of my embarrassment. Francis was clearly still angry. He continued his reckoning. "You left without a word after spending the night?" Then, his eyes lowered, and he gave a bitter smile. He looked almost lonely. "I didn't expect you to dislike me so much, to the point where you wouldn't answer my calls or messages, just to distance yourself from me." I suddenly realized that there might have been a misunderstanding. All thoughts of rebuttal and retorts vanished. My voice softened. I don't dislike you, Senior. I woke up and saw you weren't there, so I thought you'd left. My phone was off the whole time. I forgot to turn it back on. I didn't ignore you on purpose. He raised an eyebrow, probably surprised by the direction the conversation had taken. Then, slowly, he explained that he had gone out to buy me breakfast this morning. He had already sent a message on WeChat, but I didn't see it because my phone was off. With the misunderstanding cleared up, Francis's hand settled on my waist. So, he smiled politely, but there was no warmth in his eyes. Instead, there was a hint of menace. Junior, you'll take responsibility for me, right? He emphasized the last two words with a sharpness that made it clear I didn't have much of a choice. I nodded, trembling, as if I were bravely facing my fate. Francis finally let me go. I hopped off the desk, ready to head back to the meeting, but before I could leave, he called out to me again. His smile faded, and he spoke with a gentle seriousness. I don't want you to misunderstand and think I'm only doing this out of obligation. So let me make it clear. Francis looked at me, his eyes as clear as spring water. I like you, since a long time ago. Chapter 14. When I spent time with Francis, there was always a hint of awkwardness, especially after his confession. But it seemed like I was the only one feeling awkward. That is, until we finally broke through that barrier. I decided to just go with it. On the school confession wall, someone posted a warning. Recently, there's been a pervert hanging around the school's vicinity. A man with a large, overweight body. He gets a thrill out of exposing himself to women on the street, seeking pleasure from their screams and panicked reactions. Chapter 15. As the final exams approached, I was already stressed from cramming all the important points. That day, it just so happened that I ran into the perverted man who had been lurking around. On the quiet evening street, there was no scream of terror from me. The perverted man was stunned, staring at my calm expression with confusion. I glanced at him and clicked my tongue in annoyance. Then I completely let loose. Do you think you have something to show off? Is that why you're flaunting it on the street? Are you proud of hanging a chili on a big tree? Compared to my boyfriend, it's really delicate and tiny. All the words in the world that describe something miniature wouldn't be enough. Pervert, you. Don't get so worked up. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and started recording him. Aren't you proud to show off? I'll go live and help you get some publicity. No need to thank me. I kept my other hand in my bag, gripping the taser tightly. I kept my eyes on the perverted man's every move. If he didn't run and instead tried to attack me in rage, I was ready to shock him so badly that he'd never feel his little chili again. He looked furious, but suddenly, his gaze shifted to something behind me, and he quickly fled, unsure whether to cover his face or his chili. Before I could bask in the satisfaction of my righteous act of justice, I heard slow, steady footsteps behind me. The moment I turned around, I froze in place. The second I met Francis's gaze, I wished I could be struck by lightning. Francis's peach blossom eyes were filled with a mischievous smile. He was just about to speak when another voice interrupted from not far away. May I ask, who is this boyfriend you're talking about? Philip had been standing there for who knows how long. His face was expressionless, but it felt like the calm before a storm. Francis casually stepped in front of me, blocking Philip's view. He responded with a lazy smile. What do you think? Philip stared at him, issuing a final ultimatum. Francis, this doesn't concern you. I'm talking to Miriam. In that split second, a question that I had missed suddenly came to mind. Why was Philip so sure that nothing had happened between Francis and me that night? It was obvious that Francis hadn't told him anything. As I was thinking this, Philip spoke up, confirming my thoughts. You two didn't leave the bar that night, right? You stayed there the whole time. The veins on his hand, hanging by his side, were already bulging. You better not tell me you two did it in a private room at the bar. He sneered with a contemptuous smile. Wouldn't that be disgusting? I stepped out from behind Francis and questioned Philip. How do you know we went to the bar again? Philip, were you following us? His smile grew even colder. Do I have that much time? He then pulled up the chat records from the small group within the club that he was in charge of, showing them to us. It turned out that one of the group members lived near that quiet bar and had seen Francis's car while going home. They posted about it in the group chat. The next morning, seeing that the car hadn't moved and given the image Francis had built over the past 3 years of keeping a respectful distance from girls, they naturally assumed Francis and I had just spent the night at the bar to fulfill the dare. As for the phone call Philip made in the middle of the night, it was interpreted as us deliberately trying to provoke him. Chapter 16. Philip put away his phone, his gaze shifting between the two of us. Finally, he settled his eyes on Francis, smiling calmly. Francis, if you really slept with my girlfriend, I swear I'll make sure you regret it. I immediately stepped in front of Francis, watching Philip warily. My voice was stern. Philip, stop this madness. I'll say it one last time, I broke up with you that night at the bar. Francis seemed completely unfazed by the tension in the air. He maintained his usual calm composure. He brushed my hand aside and walked up to Philip. With a slight, provocative smile, he taunted, "It wasn't me who slept with her. It was her who slept with me." The tension snapped like a taut string. Philip cursed, raising his hand, but Francis quickly overpowered him, pinning his arm down. Philip ended up taking a punch from Francis. This was the first time I saw him so full of anger. Francis grabbed Philip by the collar, pulling him close. "What right do you have to question me? If you hadn't done those despicable things, would she have left you?" Philip was panting heavily, trying to fight back, but Francis suddenly kicked him hard in the chest, sending him sprawling to the ground. Looking down at him almost disdainfully, he asked, "I'm really puzzled. What makes you so confident that no matter how badly you behave, she would never leave you?" Philip glanced at me, standing a short distance away, coldly watching the scene unfold, his gaze filled with a mix of emotions. I remained indifferent. When Francis came over, I naturally took his hand, and we walked away together. Without lowering my voice, I casually complained to my current boyfriend about my ex. "He's so weak." Chapter 17. Philip was just a minor distraction. What was meant to happen would still happen. After finishing my last class in the late afternoon, I followed Francis to his apartment outside the campus. He had a super cute Siamese cat that I was eager to see. Initially, I went there with a clear mind, no ulterior motives. But after dinner, while watching a movie, Francis gave me half a bottle of fruit wine. In that pleasantly tipsy state, my courage soared to new heights. Francis had me sitting on his lap, asking with a mischievous grin, "You still remember its size, huh?" I was fed up with his teasing, the way he handled everything so smoothly yet playfully. So, I decided to go all in. I blinked, looking at him innocently. "I remember. Is that a problem?" I pointed to a spot on my lower abdomen. "It reached here." Francis laughed, leaning down to bite my lip. "Is that so?" He switched into compliment mode again. "Miriam, you were quite impressive that day." His fingers slid to my lower abdomen, teasingly drawing circles. "You're going to do just as well today, right?" I blushed uncontrollably, my eyes burning with heat. "Stop teasing me, Francis." His kisses had moved to the side of my neck, his voice growing huskier. "But do you like it?" I couldn't control my breathing, letting out a soft moan. I mumbled, "I like it." Francis had locked the Siamese cat in the bedroom. The sofa discovered a new purpose that night, bearing the weight of things it was never designed to endure. That night, I was forced to say I like it more times than I could count. Chapter 18. This time, I woke up in Francis's arms. I turned around in his embrace to face him. As I reflected on our time together, I realized how he had subtly influenced me. Francis was truly skilled. If he wanted, he could be more flirtatious and playful than Philip ever was. But he said, he only liked me. Lost in thought, I was startled when Francis woke up. Our eyes met unexpectedly, and it suddenly dawned on me. The progress bar labeled liking Francis had quietly loaded past the halfway point. Francis narrowed his eyes slightly, tightening his arms around me, pulling me closer. He nuzzled his face into the crook of my neck, his voice thick with sleep as he murmured, "I love you, Miriam." I love you. My lower face rested against his neck. It was a closeness more intimate and embarrassing than anything before. I whispered back, I know. Francis's embrace paused almost imperceptibly for a moment. Then he resumed as if nothing had changed. He didn't ask me anything further. Chapter 19. Since that night at the bar, Roma had been walking around with a glowing smile, looking like someone deeply in love. But one day, as Francis and I were leaving the campus, we ran into her, and it was clear she had been crying. She stopped us, her tone uncertain. Senior, are you and Miriam together now? Francis smiled politely and asked in return, is that any of your business? Roma forced a smile. I just wanted to warn you. Senior, you might not really know what kind of person Miriam is. Don't let her fool you. I immediately exploded. Oh, so you're the one who knows me best? Should I rename you Miriam's personal worm? Roma, furious and humiliated, growled, Miriam! Shut up. Francis cut her off, maintaining the last bit of his composure. I actually do know you better than I know Miriam. Roma stared in disbelief. Senior, you mean? Francis looked at her thoughtfully. Homewrecker? Third wheel? He asked with mock politeness. How would you like me to address you? Roma's face flushed red and then pale. In the end, the one who started the fight stormed off in anger, leaving us quite satisfied. I didn't think much of Roma after that, but I never expected her to publicly accuse me on the school confession wall, claiming I was two-timing, and it gained a lot of attention. She presented everything in a video format. Her eyes were red, and she looked haggard. The title read, Not here to expose anyone, just want to use public opinion to make Senior Miriam realize the seriousness of her actions and stop ruining my relationship with my boyfriend. The entire video was about how, during my relationship with Francis, I supposedly continued to string along Philip, leading to the breakdown of her relationship with him and his decision to break up with her. Of course, she didn't mention a single word about how she had interfered in my relationship with Philip. I closed my eyes, feeling a surge of anger. My fingers hesitated for a long time before I opened the comments section. I had already prepared myself to be thoroughly trashed. However, top comment 1, oh my god. The mistress is playing the victim. You think by blurring the details of your relationship with Philip, we wouldn't know you were the homewrecker? Top comment 2, even without reading that Facebook post. I don't believe you. Ever since I learned that Senior Miriam took down a pervert with her bare hands, I've been her fan. Top comment 3, came here from that Facebook post just to tell you, you're a disgusting mistress. Top comment 4, oh, and by the way, I won't let the scumbag off the hook either. So I'll curse you both, filthy couple. And Philip, I've reported you too. You can kiss your presidency goodbye. That Facebook post? I kept scrolling down, noticing that many people mentioned another Facebook post. After about half a minute, I finally found a link to that post. I clicked on it and was stunned again. It was a post made by Francis, under his real name, around 3,000 words, accompanied by several pictures. He not only provided solid evidence to clear my name, showing how Philip had been relentlessly pursuing me, but also exposed Roma as the true third wheel. The most important part, Francis had posted his clarification just 2 minutes after Roma made her accusations. Chapter 20. I immediately called Francis. How did you know Roma was going to slander me? How did you manage to prepare all that evidence in advance? He chuckled lightly, denying it. He said, I just took precautions, knowing her nature. I couldn't stop smiling as I propped my chin on my hand, though I tried to play coy. You didn't have to prepare it in advance. The truth would come out eventually, and Roma would end up shooting herself in the foot. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. Then Francis said, but I didn't want to give them even a single chance to attack you. My mind buzzed, and I finally understood his intention. Only by clarifying things immediately could he minimize the potential online harassment I might face due to misunderstandings. It was as if fireworks were going off in my head, scattering my reason. All that was left were heart-shaped bubbles. I hung up and immediately ran to the club meeting room to find Francis. Chapter 21. When I arrived, I was surprised to hear Philip's voice through the door. Francis, are you really that afraid of me? Francis responded as if humoring a fool. Indulgent. Sure, whatever you say. I saw the clarification you posted on Facebook. Philip ignored his nonchalant tone, sounding rather intrigued. You posted it so quickly. It's clear you had all the evidence prepared in advance. But why? He chuckled lightly. Because you're afraid I'd come out and clarify things myself. Through a narrow glass window, I saw the electronic pen in Francis's hand drop to the floor. He said nothing. Philip's expression grew even more arrogant. You're afraid I'd clarify things, steal your thunder, and then Miriam would be touched and rekindle things with me. If I'm not mistaken, Miriam hasn't told you she likes you yet. Has she? Francis snapped back to reality, picking up the pen. His face was unreadable. Are you done? The door's over there. I won't see you out. Philip acted as if he hadn't heard, his tone a mix of reflection and bragging. I know her better than you. She can't fall for you that quickly, even if she's with you. It's only because you two slept together. Forced love is pointless. Francis, let Miriam go. This self-righteous man. I found a bucket in the nearby storage room, filled it halfway with water in the bathroom, and then burst into the room. Miriam. Philip's smug expression faltered, and he nervously called my name. I didn't immediately look at Francis. Instead, I held the bucket in front of Philip. Philip, look down at the bucket. His eyes lit up with a mix of surprise and pleasure. You. I cut him off. Look down. Philip obeyed. See it clearly? I suddenly let go. The bucket crashed to the floor. Philip couldn't dodge in time, and water splashed onto his pants. I thought maybe your family was too poor to afford a mirror, so I kindly brought you a bucket of water to reflect on your true self. I was so furious that I unleashed a barrage of insults. Why can't I fall for Francis so quickly? Does that mean I have to mourn for a year before I'm allowed to like someone else? He's better looking, more loyal, and overall better than you in every way. Should I have spent my nights writing sad little essays while listening to melancholic songs instead of moving on with him? Philip pressed his lips together tightly, looking at me with a dark, unreadable expression. Just because of that 3-minute kiss, you're throwing me away so quickly. Is that fair? Me? Ah. So you don't understand human language. I took a deep breath to calm myself down. I gave Philip a fake smile. If you think you've been treated unfairly, feel free to sue me. He was about to say something else, but the club president appeared, cutting off his neurotic rant. The president looked serious. Your and Roma's situation has blown up online, causing a major impact on the school. The academic advisor is on their way to see you. The consequences won't be minor for either of you. Philip continued to stare at me stubbornly, as if he still had more to say. I resisted the urge to gloat in his face and quickly dragged the long-silent Francis out of the room. Chapter 22. By the quiet, deserted lakeside. The cloudy weather made the day feel even more restless than usual. Francis and I sat in heavy silence, each lost in thought. I was torn between explaining myself and confessing my feelings first. But what broke the silence was his apology. There's some truth to the fact that I was wary of you getting back with Philip, but my main intention was to protect you from being attacked by public opinion. I sighed, cupping his face. I made sure our eyes met. Francis, you don't have to be so cautious. Even if your first reason was true, there's no need to apologize. Because I like you, and things like this only make you more endearing to me. He paused. A few seconds later, he chuckled softly. Half a year ahead of schedule. I responded with a What do you mean by half a year? Francis looked out at the artificial lake, his gaze distant. I was prepared for it to take you half a year to like me. Of course. I also considered the possibility that you might never like me, but I'm always optimistic. I figured, as long as I'm good enough to you, better than anyone else, at least you wouldn't fall for someone else. He said softly, maybe you'd be willing to stay with me. To hear Francis, often called the golden boy, so calmly and openly express such deeply humble thoughts was more heartbreaking than touching. Sadness overshadowed any other emotion. I buried myself in his embrace, quietly beginning to cry. Francis, are you just in love with the idea of being in love? He held me close, gently stroking the back of my head, his voice lazy. I'm in love with you, I hugged him a little tighter, my voice slightly muffled as I corrected him. That's not right. You should put yourself first. Never lose sight of who you are. Francis's tone lifted slightly, and he laughed. That's just not possible. With a hint of self-mockery, he said, if I could control that, I would have stopped liking you a long time ago, back when my relationship with Philip was flourishing, without any cracks in sight. Francis's unspoken love was a long, dark night with no end in sight. The clouds had dispersed at some point, and the dappled sunlight fell on his shoulders. I told him earnestly, from now on, you'll have me by your side. Even if our future is uncertain, filled with hardships and obstacles, I'll still step onto this path with you without hesitation, and I'll do everything in my power to overcome every challenge. Francis smiled warmly. Yes. He motioned for me to look at the sun that had finally broken through the last layer of clouds. Look, the sky is brightening.